Get paid up to 2 days early through direct deposit with a Chime checking account. Sign up today at chime.com/fee-free. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Access to direct deposits up to 2 days early depends on the timing of the submission of the payment file from the payer.
No breaks. No breaks. No fear. No fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along. I'm Ian Brannan. It's May, and that means the Premiership League season is finally up and running. Throughout the episode this week, I'm joined by Chris Louis, Board Director of British Speedway Promoters Limited and promoter of Ipswich Witches, and an all-round British Speedway legend, really, if we're frankly honest, member of the 98 Ipswich side. Coming up in the show, we will be reflecting on that opening meeting on TV on Eurosport on Monday night, Wolves versus Kings Lynn, and it was a big victory for Peter Adams and his men.
Yeah, everywhere you looked, it was good.
We'll also hear from Ryan Douglas, Thomas Jorgensen, and the boss of the Kings Lynn Stars, Alex Brady. It was a thumping start to the new campaign for the Belle Vue Aces, who, with their new signing, Mate Zagar, hammered the current champions Peterborough Panthers at the National Speedway Stadium. We'll hear from the man who bagged a maximum on the day, Brady Kurtz, an extended chat with Phil Lanning coming up.
Matty's Matty, he's a character, and he lifted everyone, and even like a track walk in the pits, in the change rooms before the meeting, we're all laughing and joking, and it feels good.
We'll hear from a man who Brady Kurtz tangled with on more than one occasion at the National Speedway Stadium, Michael Palm Toft, with the Peterborough point of view after that heavy defeat to begin the season. The bank holiday weekend also saw both legs of the Scottish Derby. Glasgow defeating Edinburgh at Armadale, and then Edinburgh almost defeating Glasgow at Ashfield. A little too close for comfort for Ulrich Ostergaard, but Sam Masters bagged 18 points on Glasgow's home circuit.
We got a point, so I don't think many teams will do that here this year in Glasgow, so we'll take it.
We'll also hear from Ulrich Ostergaard, Kyle Howarth, Dillon Ruml, and Josh Macdonald with an injury update. All on the way on No Breaks, No Fear.
No breaks, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
All that and much more to come in this week's episode of the official British Speedway podcast, No Breaks, No Fear. Don't forget, if you haven't followed us or liked or subscribed to the podcast on whatever app you use, maybe do that now so you don't miss any of the future updates as they come every week through the course of the Speedway season. Joining me to look back on the action that's happened over the past few days and ahead to what the next week or so has in store is someone who's firmly involved in that action. Promoter at Ipswich Speedway, Director of British Speedway Promoters Limited, overseeing the whole structure of the sport in this country, and a voice that you may have heard on your TV at the weekend because he was alongside Kelvin Tatum to describe the action from Croatia in the opening round of the Speedway Grand Prix Series. Chris Louis joins us this week. And Chris, obviously a new era for International Speedway. The Grand Prix Series now is being run by Discovery Sports Events, and so that was the first time that we've seen how the new era might look, but an emotional one as well, with you being in the commentary box and, of course, the absence of Nigel.
Hi, and it was. I wouldn't say it was tough. It was emotional, that's for sure. The top of the show tributes. I've now, being at tracks, heard and seen 2 or 3 tributes, and of course the stuff on social media through Sky Sports and various other people that Nigel's worked for. And every single one of them naturally brings a lump to your throat, and I think it was particularly poignant at the top of the show in Croatia, particularly for Kelvin, very, very difficult. But he handled it exceptionally well, and then we got into the meeting, which was a fantastic race meeting. Such a well organised event. It was Discovery Sports Events' first one, but they really have stepped up to the plate and improved so many things, and it's got a fresh new look. So, and to top it off, the racing was superb. So, all in all, it was a very enjoyable weekend.
And the bigger picture, obviously, this is going to be going on now for the next decade. Discovery Sports Events are looking after the GP series and taking it to new places and to new heights over that time, not necessarily immediately. But with your position as a director of British Speedway, there will be a drip down effect, won't they, from this top level of speedway to the national leagues, all three of them really, that with the extra exposure that the sport's going to get, and these riders are probably going to be a little bit more famous than perhaps they have been over the coming years.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, Discovery Sports Events, their running and their broadcasting and everything will evolve as it goes. You rightly say, we can't expect it all to come overnight. It was a fantastic show, both live at the stadium, and I thought the broadcast went quite well with a few interesting new features. So, and I think you're right. I think the fact that Eurosport are under that portfolio, and so now there's a lot of speedway coming from Eurosport and Discovery. I think we will see that sort of gap being bridged and see some of the benefits coming to the UK for sure.
To talk about your team, though, the Ipswich Witches, you have, of course, a Grand Prix star in your lineup now in the form of Jason Doyle. It's a changed lineup from last year, and we know that with one thing and another, last year didn't really turn out quite as you would have hoped. But this year, you felt laying down a marker, really going big straight in with Jason Doyle. It was a big announcement to get him in the team. But that said, the League Cup campaign, whilst it is the early season, has perhaps been a bit of a disappointment for you in terms of the results. And you'd like to think that those results are not indicative of how the rest of the Premiership season is going to go.
No, I would definitely like to think that. No, it's been a strange start to the season. Look, we built a team with a nucleus of riders that are coming off bad seasons. By their standards, they were coming off very bad seasons. Troy, Eric, Cam. And we couldn't and shouldn't expect them just to put on a Witches race jacket in 22 and suddenly be, 100% better. So we knew we would need time to work, in particular with those guys, because they were looking to, as I say, to improve from poor seasons. But unfortunately, with the short season in terms of only 6 teams being in the Premiership and the transfer window that opens up after 25%, you just don't have the luxury of sort of hanging around if you feel you're not competitive, and we haven't been competitive. Our last meeting at home against Kings Lynn was a vast improvement. Again, we weren't at full strength. I don't think we've been at full strength since the first meeting. So there's been so many reasons why we haven't been as competitive, of course, as we would like. But yeah, as I say, the short season and the transfer window just mean you've got to move fast. So, we've been kind of pretty much forced into making an early change. But I'm happy with the team. I was happy with the team from the get-go. Jason leads by example. He gives, the effort in every single one of his league races that he would give in a Grand Prix. That's what made him a world champion. And it's early days, but I'm so happy to be working with him. So I believe in the team. Yes, we've had to make a change, but I still very much believe in the team.
To talk about that change, if people aren't aware yet, Ipswich have signed Ben Barker into the team, and departing the Witches is Cameron Heaps. Tell us about that, because obviously there's many riders that you've probably gone through and had on the table perhaps as potential options or not, perhaps as when you get further down the line with negotiations. Tell us about how you ended up with Ben in the team and what the thought process was behind the change.
First of all, the thought process, as I said, time wasn't on our side. We had to move quick. And Cameron just hasn't hit the ground running. I don't really know what's behind that. I think sort of the pandemic didn't help him, not being able to return home to Australia over the last couple of years. Made life very difficult for him. And it's hampered his preparation. And he, as I say, he didn't hit the ground running. And we weren't afforded the time to work with him. So that was the reason for the change. We have got a team that really we need a contribution from everybody, from all 7 riders, for us to be competitive. And I think we're more than capable of winning when that happens. But when you've got one rider that's consistently not been able to put the points on the board, then you have to do something. So yeah, we looked at the international market. Obviously our opponents on Thursday, Belle Vue, have signed Matti Sagar. Ex Grand Prix star, was obviously in the Grand Prix this weekend. And we looked at the international market, and we had discussions with one rider in particular that went on for a couple of days, but we just couldn't afford it. I've got to put my hands up and say, as a club, it was a step too far. So we looked at the home market, and there aren't a lot to choose from, to be fair. But Ben just made perfect sense. He's been with us. He's had a season and most of a season with us in the past. He's a real team man. He gives everything for the team. He works within the team. He's got that sort of team ethos about him. So he's a good fit. He knows the club. He knows the management. And it was something that we just said, let's give this a go.
And I think when you've got a team, you've got to consider the dynamic as well, knowing necessarily who's going to fit in with the guys you've already got, because you don't want to upset the apple cart, I suppose, in a morale sense. But at the same time, as you mentioned there, the finances are a key part, and maybe supporters will say, well, there's this rider or there's that rider, but there's all sorts of things that probably go on in the negotiations that probably supporters aren't party to.
100%. I mean, Ipswich Town wouldn't be where they are in League One right now if I'd built the team, but I don't pay the bills. So,
yeah.
And that's the case. My job as promoter is to make sure that the club keeps going. I want it to win absolutely every time, and I will put all of the resources that can be afforded into doing that. And to be honest, I really think this is a positive move. Ben, anybody who's watched Ben over the years knows that he's 100% committed to his racing. He will give 100% in every race. He doesn't know how to ride any differently, if I'm honest. So, and that's what, in particular, I think all sports fans want to see that from their competitors, but Ipswich in particular, they demand 100% effort. Our fans, of course, there's a nucleus of fans that just want to win at all costs. That's fair enough. But in the main, our fans just want to see 100% effort.
The TV coverage got underway on Monday night, and the opening fixture was between Wolves and Kings Lynn. Kings Lynn had a good start to the season in the Premiership League Cup, which has been happening, but with one thing and another, bit of illness, injuries knocking around already after the early season wars that some of the riders are getting themselves in, that really hampered Kings Lynn's performance on Monday night, didn't it? Yeah,
it was a shame, for the spectacle of the opening round, of Premiership Speedway, particularly on television. So, to have riders like Niels, Christian Everson and Josh Pickering obviously under the weather, and Josh must have been quite considerably under the weather because he's a tough lad, so he wouldn't have been walking away from the meeting if he could have ridden at all. And obviously what looked like only a half fit Richard Lawson after his crash at Ipswich. It knocked the stuffing out of them. Obviously we've seen them home and away this year, and they're a good solid side, much as Peterborough were last year. So it was, I sat watching the meeting and was disappointed that they weren't able to take the fight to Wolverhampton. Can't take anything away from Wolves. They rode very well. The track seemed to suit them. Obviously the weather maybe played its part in that. So I'm sure Wolverhampton now as a management will be looking and saying, this is kind of how we need to have the track. It felt like one or two of the riders had sort of made comments that sort of sent a message to the management and said, this is what we want, this is what we like. So I'm sure that's what they'll have to be given from now on. I enjoyed the meeting. It just wasn't as competitive as it could and should have been.
Well, let's hear from a few of those involved now. We'll hear from Ryan Douglas and Thomas Jorgensen soon. First of all, let's hear the thoughts of the Wolves boss, Peter Adams, speaking with BBC Radio WM's Mike Taylor.
Peter, that was super stuff. Really solid performance from the team, especially your top five.
Yeah, they went very well today. The track conditions suited us down to the ground, and it was, as you say, a very strong performance, particularly amongst the top five, who were all really, on the game.
Ryan Douglas, we've seen in decent form. We saw it at times last season. That was the very best of him there.
Yeah, I think that's probably his best ever performance for us, and thoroughly merited his 8:15 inclusion. So, but I mean, I wouldn't want to sort of single anybody out. Nick Morris was fantastic entertainment, Sam was unbeaten, so, everywhere you looked, it was good.
And I think that's the point that's been made by yourself and Chris about the start of the season, and when we talked a few weeks ago about it having a top five that is almost interchangeable for, you know, riders who are very close together, giving that team a very solid look. That's what we just saw.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've settled on our riding order now. We were experimenting with that a little bit in the earlier part of the year, but no, I think everybody's, you know, in there comfortable with the positions they're riding in the team. So hopefully those pairings will develop as the year goes on, and we'll have more performances like tonight.
Yeah, is that about partnerships? And, you know, obviously sometimes you see riders like, you know, Luke and Ryan come out 3 times. Is it things like that riders get used to, and the gate slots and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be said for regularity about when you're coming out on the track and who your partner is and all that kind of stuff, you know, all fits together. So yeah, everybody's happy, and we move on to Thursday now. It'll be a different story there, I'm sure. Yeah,
I mean, you've had some interesting meetings home and away to start the season, quite closely fought ones, but that is a little tester there in Kings Lynn, because they'll be you know, strong on their own patch, you'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a unique track, you know. It's not somewhere where over the years we've had particularly good results. Last season we certainly did. We had a thumping win there very early on, and then we drew there when we went for the second time. But they had a different animal this year, and I think Thursday will be tough, but we're intent on giving them a run.
So a difficult evening for Kings Lynn on their opening fixture in the Premiership, but not long to wait until the rematch, which takes place at the Adrian Flux Arena on Thursday night. Let's hear from the Kings Lynn boss, Alex Brady.
Yeah, it's tough. We came into the meeting tonight full of confidence after the League Cup campaign so far. But just wasn't our night. Niels is struggling to breathe, actually. Josh is struggling as well. And Richard Lawson, you can see him hobbling around with his knee. So we're a bit walking wounded tonight, but, you know, disappointing night, but we'll go again Thursday.
Yeah, like you say, it's just one of those you got to take on the chin. Look at the positives as well, though. Thomas Jorgensen, you certainly kept him a busy man. Rode really well and deserved his 14 points, if not more in the end.
Yeah, he was brilliant value tonight. And I'm really pleased for him tonight, because he's had a bit of an indifferent start. He's had a good one and then a couple of bad rides, and he's not quite performed how he's wanted to. And Thomas is a confidence rider, so tonight we're doing the power of good. And yeah, if there's one positive we can take from tonight, it's his performance, and hopefully that will stand us in good stead for Thursday and beyond.
Yeah, you mentioned the riders as well, with Everson, with Lawson, with Pickering. So it's going to be particularly those who are suffering through illness. It's going to be a nervy few hours with team news ahead of Thursday now.
Yeah, and obviously every Premiership club is riding on Thursday as well, so that poses a different problem as well. So all being well, we'll be fit, healthy and ready to go with all the riders. Niels has told me he'll be here no matter what, and he'll be on that bike and winning races, and Josh the same. So and Richard's knee is bad, but he said once he's on the bike he doesn't really feel much pain, so it's just a case of nursing him through those rides. So I think we'll be okay Thursday night, but it's just it is a bit of a headache. Yeah,
talking about Niels Christian Everson as well, I understand the short-term deal ran out after tonight's fixture. So what's the update with Niels?
We've been lucky enough to extend that short-term deal on a sort of temporary basis. Niels is happy to do it. The club are delighted to keep him here, and as am I. He's been excellent for us since he's ridden. His professionalism is second to none. So yeah, as it stands, Niels is staying with us for the time being. But there's no deadline placed on that. So yeah, he's doing a great job, and hopefully he can continue to do that for us deep into the season as well.
Many thanks for speaking to us, Alex.
Cheers, guys.
Alex Brady, the team boss at Kings Lynn, speaking with Ryan Guest there after that defeat against Wolves. Ipswich promoter Chris Louis is with us. Chris, with Kings Lynn, I suppose it didn't quite work out last night because of illness and a few injuries and so on, but in having Richie Worrell in their squad, they've got surely the strongest reserve in the Premiership, and of course he can go out and ride 7 times, and it was something that was deployed with great effect by Peterborough last year, and whoever goes to reserve in the Kings Lynn side is going to be a hugely experienced rider. Are we going to see more of this kind of team building going on to try and engineer it so that you've got strength throughout the side, and whoever goes to reserve is going to be a big hitter in some respect? Yeah,
for sure. Richie isn't what you would call a reserve, and all of the guys that you just mentioned are not reserves either. So I think they looked at their, the clubs obviously do have a link. I can't shy away from that, and I think that they looked at the way Peterborough went about their business last year with the team they had. and said, yeah, well, okay, let's go down the same road. And you know, certainly in the League Cup it's worked. And when you look at last night, you know, the scoreline wasn't a huge gap between them, considering how affected Kings Lynn were by those illnesses and injuries. So, you know, it is. I think you're right. You know, you started with the question, will we see teams being built like that? Yes, I think we probably will, to be honest. We've seen it in the past. It's happened to Ipswich, where we've had a situation where, you know, we're always going to have one extremely strong reserve. And yeah, you know, at the end of the day, that's good, but you've still got to have a team, a 1 to 5, that's capable of scoring pretty consistently, which they do have. So, yeah, I think it is a strong way to build teams, and I think we possibly will see more of an effort to do that. But you know, you've got to sort of think that not every team can do it. The riders aren't there available to fill every team with those sort of 5 and 6 point riders. So.
Well, the man who was the top scorer for the Kings Lynn Stars on that opening televised fixture on Eurosport was Thomas Jorgensen with 14 points. He's been reflecting on that performance at Monmore with Ryan Guest.
Well, Thomas Jorgensen, a first league meeting for the Kings Lynn Stars tonight, a first defeat of the season as well. It was a tough night for the team, wasn't it?
It was, for sure. I mean, we always knew it was going to be a tough one coming here to Monmore Green. It's difficult as an away rider, as everybody else is saying, you know. So, but we you know, we didn't expect it to be like this, this big of a defeat. We did expect to come here to win, or at least get some points with us. So it was obviously a big disappointment for the team, but you know, we've still done good so far up to now, and you know, we've had a few of the boys there. They're feeling a bit under the weather as well, so you know, that doesn't help, especially on a track like this when you have to turn very hard, and it can be a bit tacky. So it is tricky, but yeah, we'll just move on and on to the next one.
Yeah, you mentioned a few of the boys not feeling 100% in themselves as well. That led to it being a busy night for yourself with 7 outings and 14 points individually. You really did look quick tonight out there.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was getting busy towards the end with 300 bounds and obviously 15 as well. But I knew it was coming. So well, I knew I had 11 and 13, and then I might go out and hit 12, and they said so. And obviously, because I can't remember what I did and hit 11, and then I got 12, and then there's no time to think, and you just have to go with it. But you know, we've got good people here in the team. They're there straight away to help you out with the bike and that, and you know, yeah, we got plenty of time in between, so it's good.
Yeah, plenty of time, and a quick chance for revenge at the Adrian Flux Arena against the Wolves on Thursday.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah.
Well done tonight, Thomas.
Thank you, mate.
You're listening to No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast. That was Thomas Jorgensen, top scorer for the Kings Lynn Stars against Wolves on Monday. Bit of good news for Kings Lynn, though. Whilst they lost that fixture, they surely are boosted by the extension to the deal for Niels Christian Eversen to remain with the Stars for the time being. There's no end date on that, but great for British Speedway as well, Chris Louis, that we've got names like Niels Christian Eversen, along with you've got Jason Doyle in your side, but we're seeing some big names back in British Speedway, and that's got to be good for the sport as a whole.
Yeah, shame we didn't see the best of him, obviously, on TV last night, but you know, to have these guys in our league, you know, the Brady Kurtz, Max Frick, Jason Doyle, Niels, Jack Holder, you know, it's what we've got to do. We've got to attract these guys back. We're starting to do that. I think negotiations with the Polish Extraliga going forward into next season, I hope, will bear fruit, and we'll see you know, a few more return. I'm not saying there's going to be riders flocking to the UK to ride in the Premiership, but we only need a steady stream, and we can build back up to where we should be.
Still to come on No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast. We'll be spotlighting that Belle Vue meeting where they absolutely thumped the Peterborough Panthers, and we're going to have an extended interview with Brady Kurtz. That's on the way soon. Just one final interview from that match at Monmore then, and let's hear from the Wolves' top scorer. 14 plus 1 bonus point on the night for Ryan Douglas, who's speaking with Ryan Guest.
Well, Ryan Douglas, with the way Kings Lynn have started the season, I think you expected a bit of a tougher contest tonight, but nevertheless 53-37, a dream start to the league campaign for Wolves.
Yeah, that's a great meeting for us. We definitely thought it was going to be tough, but they were unbeaten so far. So we come in knowing we had to be good, and I think we all rode well tonight and showed that we're also a good team, and it's definitely a good confidence booster for our boys.
Yeah, you mentioned the team side of it there as well. Club bosses, they said it was the top five had been put together to get the majority of the points. That's certainly how it panned out tonight, with yourself, Nick Morris and Sam Masters all going unbeaten.
Yeah, obviously that's an awesome thing. If you can have 3 riders in your team doing that, you're going to be pretty hard to beat. So I think we're all happy, and the track was good and suited us tonight and seemed like good racing. So yeah, we're all obviously happy, and now just move on to the next one and see if we can keep it up.
Yeah, the riding order changed against Belle Vue a couple of weeks ago as well, and everyone seems really happy, really comfortable in the new positions.
Yeah, I think it's a strong team like that. Stevie likes it number 2, and he's had some good results, and I think Nick prefers at 5 as well, and me and Becca I think can do well in the middle there. So if we can keep being like that, I think we can be competitive this season.
Yeah, and by winning here tonight takes a little bit of pressure off the trip to Kings Lynn on Thursday night now.
Yeah, it does, but probably gives us a bit of confidence as well, knowing that we turned them over here with that many points. But obviously they're a different team there, and obviously Josh was a bit sick tonight and pulled out. We know he's going to be up for it on Thursday, so we're going to go there and definitely give our best again, and hopefully we can come away with something.
Well done to you and the boys tonight, Dougie.
Thank you very much.
Let's fly in Ryan Douglas chatting with Ryan Guest. I'm not sure if he's flying or not, but great to hear from Dougie, who's had such a great start to the season with both his clubs, Scunthorpe and, of course, Wolves on Monday night. In the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast, we're going to turn the attention to the first match of the Premiership season, which was the dream start for Belle Vue, but a nightmare for the reigning champions, Peterborough. A huge hammering at the National Speedway Stadium to kick things off at lunchtime on Bank Holiday Monday. We will have a long chat with Brady Kurtz. We'll also hear from Michael Palm Toft as well. And we're going to look at the Scottish Derby, which took place over the weekend. It was honours in favour of the Glasgow Tigers, but a close affair at Ashfield on Sunday. We'll hear from Sam Masters and Ulrich Ostergaard from each side. All to come on No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Ian Brannan. I'm joined by Chris Louis, promoter at Ipswich Speedway and one of the directors of British Speedway Promoters Limited, and a new voice on the Grand Prix coverage at the weekend as well. But we're going to turn our attention to the match on Monday at lunchtime when Belle Vue slammed reigning champions Peterborough 64-26 in a remarkable start to the Premiership campaign in Manchester. Brady Kurtz scored a 15-point maximum for the Aces, and we're going to hear from him very soon. But the Aces started with 4 successive 5-1s as the Panthers also suffered a succession of problems. Max Frick adding 12+1, only being beaten in the last race, and Matty Zagar made a successful return with 10+1 bonus point. Chris Harris was the Panthers' only race winner on a dismal day for the visitors. Chris Louis, in quite a start for the Aces, perfect start for them, absolute disastrous start for Peterborough. What can go wrong did go wrong, in the words of the Panthers boss Rob Lyon, and certainly a day to forget for them.
It is, yeah. I mean, Belle Vue is a track. It's strange because, it's a track that every rider likes to go to test themselves. Man, machine and track. Forget the opposition for a moment. It's all about going as fast as you can on a speedway bike, which is something that you can certainly do at Belle Vue. So, but then on the other hand, you've really got to be set up right. A fraction out on having the bike set up, and that makes a massive difference. There's nowhere to hide. You can make starts all day long, but if you're just a couple of mile an hour slower, then those homeboys are going to come past you. So, I don't know a lot of the detail. I know Scott Nicholls had a couple of engine problems, which obviously hampered him. And I guess, a bit like I was saying earlier, they are a team that really are built around every rider scoring points. So when they're going to get one or two that don't, then it's going to be really tough for them. And Belle Vue went into the meeting with a lot of hype. They've just signed Matty Zagar, brought him back to Belle Vue, which was a big thing for them. And obviously early doors with the problems for Peterborough and Belle Vue riding well, their tails went up and they never looked back. So I have to say, quite shocked by that result. I mean, when I was checking the scores midway through, I feared it was going to be even worse than that.
Well, it was a star performance from all of the riders, but particularly Brady Kurtz, who got a 15-point maximum. He's been speaking with Phil Lanning and feels that now he's maybe just starting to realise his potential and show what he can do.
I felt like it's been pretty good all year, to be honest. The points haven't been massive, but I feel like I've had good speed. I've been making good starts, and I hadn't felt the same as I did last year, where I was really struggling. I was leaving the meeting, having no idea where it went wrong and what I needed to fix. But yeah, it's feeling a lot better this year, and today was good, and the team spirit and everything's a lot better today. So I think good things to come for Belle Vue, and hopefully I can show this form for the rest of the year.
Obviously, you got the big bounce from Matty signing. That seemed to lift everybody. Is that fair to say? I mean, but there seemed to be a good spirit prior to that anyway.
Yeah, there definitely was. There was no problems in the team. I feel a bit sorry for Jake, actually. I'm really good friends with him, and he's a cool guy. But Matty's Matty, he's a character, and he lifted everyone, and even like a track walk in the pits, in the change rooms before the meeting, we're all laughing and joking, and it feels good. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do. I think we got a really, really strong team now, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year, really.
Strange feeling today. You've beaten Peterborough. A lot of people have said that if you'd ridden in the grand final last year, that would have made all the difference. You're especially good around the East of England showground. But obviously, the end of last year, no one's really spoken a great deal about what happened to you. It was quite a serious injury, which, because it had happened at the end of the season, no one really spoke about. Please explain, because you said there was a sort of bleed in your brain, was that right?
Yeah, well, I had the crash in part of bits and hit my head really bad, and I knew I've had some problems with my head in the past a few years back, and it really knocked me around, and I'm quite cautious of it now. I went and got the scans and everything after, and I had a small bleed on the brain, but it wasn't anything to be totally alarmed about or anything, but it's obviously not something that you want to head straight back to the track and risk.
It's not the sort of thing you want to hear,
no,
either.
Exactly.
And you have to take every possible precaution because of that.
Definitely. It's under no circumstance was it something I was willing to risk for any reward. And that's basically it, really. I wanted to take the time off. I didn't ride at all in Australia, not until I hadn't been on a bike from that crash in Pardubice until 1 week before I flew back here before press day, and that was definitely what I needed. For sure, I needed the time off to recover, and I wasn't well for a pretty long time after it. But
were you concerned that there would be a long-term effect, that there may be even a chance that it would affect coming back at all?
Never particularly. I never really thought that I wouldn't come back to normal or whatever like that. You could say I was fine afterwards, but there's always the thing in the back of your mind, if I crash again too soon, is this gonna affect me? Obviously later in life as well, it's not good to have a lot of head knocks, and but I'm glad I took the time off. It was the right decision for me, but obviously I would have liked to have been in the grand final and held the trophy up with Belle Vue, but if I was there doesn't necessarily mean we were going to win, but we definitely.
Belle Vue fans will always claim that anyway.
We definitely. I think we had the best chance possible.
Okay, and just finally, that's a big result against Peterborough. You then move on. You've now got to build on this, as you've just said in the press conference. This is one meeting. Don't get carried away.
Yeah.
This is a very strong side suddenly now. It looks very strong today. What do you do to maintain that? Do you make sure the next meeting you sort of go, right, feet on the ground, chaps, we've got to carry on?
Yeah, I think the away meetings are still going to be tough. We've still got Norrick, who hasn't been to a lot of tracks. Matty hasn't ridden at a lot of these tracks for a long time. He went good today, but he's done a lot of laps around this track before. He turned up and felt comfortable straight away, and there's a few tracks, I'm assuming Ipswich, he hasn't been to for a long time, and probably even Peterborough he hasn't raced at for a lot of years, because that's been in the Premier League most of the time when he was here. And I think I may be wrong, he might turn up to Ipswich and get a 15-pointer, but I think it'll take him a couple of meetings to get the feel again for the harder British tracks and that. But I think we've got a strong team, and we only need to keep picking up points away and keep winning. Most importantly, we need to win at home. I think that's where we lost a lot last year. We let way too many matches slip here, but now I think we've got the side that we can be dominant at home. We've got a lot of firepower, and I think we were always missing. We always, like last year, we really relied on me and Dan to score big points at home to get the win, and Dan did. I sometimes did.
I'm not saying a word.
But now I think we've got the extra guy who can go out and win races when it's needed, and can win the big races in Heat 15. And
you've got Charles Wright.
It's a
really strong middle order now.
Really, really strong. We've got a lot of guys who can win, who can get out there and get race wins on the board, which is what we need. And I'm looking forward to. It's probably, I could say it's nearly the best I've felt about a team's chances at the start of the season. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Listen, thanks for your time and well done today.
No worries.
As Brady Kurtz scored a maximum for Belle Vue on Monday against the Peterborough Panthers. And touching in that chat with Phil Lanning about the injury he received in Pardubice, where it was a serious head injury, and he mentioned there a bleed on the brain, and because of that, really, the mental scars lasted a lot longer than the physical ones, and that can often be the case for riders. Chris Louis, can't it? That you can recover from the broken arm, the broken leg, but when you actually get back on the bike again, that whole frame of mind can change for you and really affect your riding for quite some time.
And I think in particular with Brady, obviously, suffering a head injury. I've been there. I've come back from that, and it was far tougher than I had imagined. And you're normally the last person to understand an injury like that. If you break an arm, break a leg, you get shown an X-ray, you get shown the pins and screws, you can see it's fixed, it doesn't hurt anymore. Yeah, that's fine, away you go. I think head injuries are much more complex, much more difficult to recover from. So I can completely get what he's saying and understand what he's saying. I think I actually don't know that I ever made a full recovery from my head injury in terms of how it affected me psychologically, although I do know that it was a good 18 months before I was anywhere near right. So I fully understand what he's saying, and it's good to see that he's now able to hopefully find some consistency, bang in some points, because he's a good lad who's got a bright future ahead of him and can certainly ride a speedway bike. So I get exactly where he's coming from. As I said, head injuries I think are the worst.
So each of the Belle Vue Aces at least getting a paid win in that fixture. 64-26 it finished. One of the top scorers for the Peterborough Panthers was the Peterborough number 1, Michael Palm Toft, who finished on 7 points. He's been looking back on a tough day at the office with Phil Lanning.
Yeah, it's not much more you can say. I think we got a good hiding here. Definitely something to learn.
What can you learn from that sort of match?
I think we need to talk more between us riders. Seems like everybody just buried their head in the sand. It's like all had some issue somewhere. I had an average night apart from my first heat. Not good enough, but not completely disheartened.
Was it a bad time to come here because they got the bounce from having Zagar signing? It obviously lifted their pit area.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, we would have liked to be here before Zagar came. It's like, you know how good he is. He's still a world-class rider. But no, we were poor out in the starts. We were slow on track. It didn't matter who they had in the team really. If they're dialed in as they are here on a day where the track is like this, then whoever gets to the first bit where there's a bit of fluff, then you're gone, more or less.
Is that a wake-up call? I mean, you've had such a good year. I mean, last year you had a great away record. You only lost twice on the road. To get a beating like that, will that maybe inspire you to sit down a bit more and say, right, guys, we've got to kick up the backside here?
Yeah, I think it's more individually, really. Probably a couple of dozen pull trees up like they did last year, but it's just getting dialed back in and get going, really. I got a new engine used today, meant to be the same as the others, but the track was different, so you don't really know what to take, really.
So is this a blip?
I think so, yeah. For most of us, yeah. With such quality riders and so on, Harris had loads of bike problems, which is not good, it's not helping. I don't really...
I think you had about 5 retirements today in total.
Yeah, it's not good enough at all. 1 is bad, 5 is ridiculous. It's just not good enough.
You obviously got Belle Vue back at the East of England Showground next Monday.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to hit back hard.
Oh, different ball game. They come to our joints, let's hide them.
Okay, good stuff. Listen, thanks for your time, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Peterborough Panthers number 1, Michael Palm-Toft, struggling to put his finger on one thing that went wrong. I think so much went wrong in that fixture at the National Speedway Stadium. Onwards and upwards for the Panthers. We'll talk about them again in just a moment because they're heading to Sheffield. Chris Louis, Ipswich promoter, is with us in this episode. And for Ipswich, this Thursday, well, you have a visit from the Belle Vue Aces, who've certainly sent a message out to the rest of the league. And how you fancy meeting a rampant Belle Vue at this moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they've put the pressure on. The league have to sit up and look at that. We've raced Belle Vue home and away this year, lost both of those meetings. So to think that Belle Vue could hammer them, I think 64-26, we have to sort of sit up and take notice and say, OK, we knew they were going to be tough opposition. Now that's been cemented. It's going to be very tough. But looking forward to it. We made a change of our own. We've gradually improved, as I said, against Kings Lynn at home, even without Paul Stark and without Anders Rowe. I felt we acquitted ourselves much better. So we lost by a couple of points, and which is hugely disappointing. You don't want to lose at home, particularly to your local rivals. But no, Belle Vue, a completely different prospect, a completely different team, and we know the task in front of us for that one.
All 6 teams are racing on Thursday in the Premiership, so it's going to be a very busy evening. And your fairly near neighbours, local rivals, Kings Lynn, are in action, and they've got a rematch against Wolves and looking for revenge after that meeting on Monday night.
Yeah, I think they're going to need to be back at full strength in terms of illnesses and injuries and things, because I fear that if they're still suffering in the way they clearly were on Monday night, that they could be facing a home loss against Wolverhampton. They're a good solid side that I rate, to be honest. They performed very well last year. They're not vastly different this year. So, Kings Lynn could be up against it. They really will be hoping that certainly Josh is back, because when we were there the week before, he maxed out and looked, unbeatable. So, they're going to need him back. Richard Lawson needs to be back at full fitness. So, yeah, I think it's very much fingers crossed for them leading into this one.
And the other fixture is at Ollerton, Sheffield, taking on the Peterborough Panthers, who, of course, are the reigning champions, Dad's Army and all that. But, of course, as we were just mentioning, suffering such a heavy defeat at Belle Vue on Monday, sure to knock the confidence, but at the same time, sure to probably fire them up and give them the kick up the backside that maybe they didn't know they needed. And we heard from Michael Palm-Toft that they want to get back to winning ways as quickly as possible. But Sheffield, with the success that they've had in the Premiership League Cup so far, one of the form sides, many people's favourites, it's not the easiest of places to be going, isn't it, to get yourself back to winning ways?
Not an easy place to go to and have a confidence-boosting win, no. I think Sheffield started as most fans, probably managers, if they were honest. I think they pretty much felt that Sheffield were the favourites before a wheel was turned. So, and they've done nothing so far in their League Cup campaign to suggest that wasn't correct. So no, if I were Rob Lyon, I would be wishing I was going somewhere slightly easier than Sheffield to boost the morale in the team again.
So those 3 fixtures in the Premiership, all 6 sides in action at 7:30 on Thursday night in British Speedway's Premiership. As you just heard, it's Sheffield versus Peterborough at Ollerton. At Vauxhall, Chris Louis' Ipswich taking on the Belle Vue Aces, and it's the Kings Lynn Stars versus the Wolverhampton Wolves. And we'll have reaction from those matches next week here on No Breaks, No Fear. Next, we're turning our attention to the Championship. There's been quite a lot of action, including a Scottish derby. We'll hear from Ulrich Ostergaard and Sam Masters from both Edinburgh and Glasgow. We'll also hear from Charles Wright, who was involved in that win for Redcar in the Championship Knockout Cup, which was a thriller that came all the way down to the final heat of 30 heats over the combined 2 legs. We'll hear from Dillon Ruml of the Oxford Cheetahs as well. Kyle Howarth of the Leicester Lions, who was in that Leicester side who've had such a great start to the season, especially at home where they've demolished everybody so far. And we'll hear from Josh Macdonald of the Oxford Cheetahs as well, who's been out with injury, and his hopes of getting back fit as soon as possible. It's all on the way here on No Breaks, No Fear.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. I'm Ian Brannan. I'm joined this week by Ipswich promoter and director of British Speedway, Chris Louis. And I'm going to turn our attention now to the Championship because, well, we had a big Scottish derby, the first one of the year, with Edinburgh taking on Glasgow at Armadale. But it was Glasgow who were the big winners in the first Scottish derby of the season, with an emphatic 51-39 triumph at Armadale, with all 7 Tigers taking at least one paid win in their best result at Armadale for 6 years. Craig Cook led the way with 11 plus 1 bonus point against his former club, whilst Ulrich Ostergaard notched 9 plus 2 at a venue where he suffered serious injury last year, and we'll hear from Ulrich very soon. Reserves Connor Bailey and Daniel Hume contributed 15 plus 1 between them, with Sam Masters scoring 11 for the Edinburgh Monarchs. So that was on Friday night, and then it wasn't long to return for the revenge mission for the Edinburgh Monarchs at Ashfield on Sunday evening. But Glasgow made it a derby double against the Monarchs, but only after a tense last heat decider at Ashfield. The Tigers had no answer to Monarchs number 1, Sam Masters, who romped to an 18-point maximum, but the host just held on for a 46-44 victory. Craig Cook top scoring for the host once again with 11. Connor Bailey picking up a vital 8 plus 2 bonus points. Masters backed up by Kai Thompson and Josh Pickering for the Monarchs. So close to getting a win at Ashfield for the Edinburgh Monarchs. We'll hear from Ulrich Ostergaard, the Glasgow captain, in a moment. But first, that man who bagged 18 points plus 11 in the first staging. So it's been a big weekend for Sam Masters. Here he is talking with Phil Lanning.
Strange feeling for you, 18-point maximum, but a narrow defeat. It's a kind of bittersweet moment.
Yeah, it is. You know, I had a bad night on Friday, so personally, it was good for me. I needed that to keep me going. But as you said, I'm disappointed that the team lost. That's the main thing. But again, the whole team, we lost by only 2 away from home against Glasgow, where they smashed us by 12 on Friday. So there's a lot of positives in it. And we got a point. So I don't think many teams will do that here this year in Glasgow. So we'll take it.
Restored some pride as well, because obviously it's a sore one on Friday for the club. But to come here and get so close is everyone's a bit more cock-a-hoop now.
Yeah, it gives the fans and everyone else a bit of hope too now. If we come in and got smashed again, then yeah, you'd be a little bit down. But I mean, to lose by 2, okay, we didn't win, but you can't be too sad about that. So I'm happy for the boys. Everyone's starting to find their feet, and we've got a good bunch of guys too. We all enjoy racing with each other, and hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, lots of positives, because Kai had a much better meeting for you tonight, and you're without James as well. So it just goes to show that there is the ability in that team.
That's right. If James was here today, no disrespect to Willie, but James does go pretty good here. What I've seen in the past, I think it could have been a different story. We probably would have won today. But yeah, that's for another time. So next time, hopefully, we can come and win.
In a curious way, is it a sort of moral victory for you today?
What, sorry?
A moral victory, like a sort of, you get something more than 1 point. You've actually found something extra from that today.
Yeah, that's right. We obviously need to open our account in the Premier League table and get some points. Yeah, it's early in the season. It's a long season. Anything can happen. So we've still got to keep concentrating on all the other ones. And yeah, it was a good day for Scottish Speedway as well. Good racing, and it was good for Speedway.
I seem to remember you telling me in the past that you didn't like this place.
It's better now. They've changed it a lot since
You would
then.
say that now?
Yeah, I have liked the last couple of years, to be honest. So yeah, it's a nice track to go to. Starts were nice. I don't think I missed one today, which was good, because I couldn't make one on Friday. But yeah, I did enjoy racing on the track. And yeah, I do enjoy riding here now.
And overall, you seem to be flying in both leagues. It seems to be happy days.
Yeah, I had a good season last year, and it's always hard to have 2 good seasons. So I'm sort of working on that, and hopefully have another good season this year. As I said, there's a long way to go, and as long as I keep enjoying it, then I'm happy.
Good stuff. Listen, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, a big win for Glasgow over the course of the weekend. 7 points in the bag for them from the 2 meetings. But whilst you would probably have backed a Glasgow win against Edinburgh, I don't think you'd have backed it to be so close at Ashfield, and you certainly wouldn't have backed a Glasgow win at Armadale, which has, notoriously such strong home advantage.
Yeah, and it's not something that you've seen too often in history, because, as you say, quite rightly, Armadale is a tricky little track that has a decent home advantage. So But, derbies, rivalries, that's what sport's about. Speedway's no different, and it is a massive derby, that one, Edinburgh and Glasgow. And I think, I've seen it before. I've seen Ipswich lose at home in the morning when we used to do the double header with Kings Lynn, quite convincingly. I think one year we lost by about 8 or 10 points. And it wound us up so much, particularly me, because, I'm an Ipswich boy, so it makes a difference. But and we went there and won quite convincingly, probably by the same margin. And obviously Edinburgh put in a decent account of themselves over at Glasgow. So, I've seen that before. It can have that effect, and you want to hope that it's going to have that effect on your team because, believe you me, nothing hurts like losing in a local derby, particularly at home.
Well, it was a little bit closer than Ulrich Ostergaard would have liked. The Glasgow captain has been discussing that second leg at Ashfield with Phil Lanning.
Overall, a great weekend for Glasgow, but for some reason, there's an air of despondency about getting a home win today. Was it just starts, or what was it today?
Well, we didn't get it the way we did on Friday, obviously. We all just rode a lot better on Friday, I think. I don't know whether the pressure got to us a little bit. We had a good win. We all know they ride this track pretty well. The local derbies and all that, but I'm glad we pulled it off in the end. It was too close for comfort, and definitely a few of us didn't score the points we should have done. And something to look into for next week because it's only going to be harder and harder throughout the season. So we need to go out and change a few things and come back stronger next week.
Slight wake-up call after Friday. Maybe people are sort of not in the literal terms of a hangover, but to sort of get such a good result and then sort of be all sort of maybe a little bit of a kick up the backside just to know that everyone's tough.
Yeah, well, like I said, we knew they would be hard here. This is such a fast track, and sometimes we don't really get the home advantage we want. And like I said, we were getting a lot better on Friday. It's a small technical track. When you get at Edinburgh, it's a lot easier to win the rides. We're here. You have to fight for it a lot more. And I think even with all the rain we've had, the track was very different than it's been the last couple of weeks. And I think it caught us out a little bit. So it's probably a wake-up call, and it's definitely something to look into. We all want to score more points, and we want to win a bit more comfortable than only 2 points. But it was a good close meeting, and hopefully the fans enjoyed it, and we got all the points we needed.
Good stuff. I should ask you as well. A strange moment for you going back to Edinburgh on Friday. Was it nice to come away with a win? Because it felt like unfinished business from last year when you actually helped Glasgow win the meeting but never got to see it.
No, that's right. It was a really nice feeling actually to actually get out there, score the points. Obviously it was a bit on my mind. I was trying to not think too much about it, but obviously it will be, even though I can't even remember the crash. It was still on my mind a little bit. I didn't want to go and do the same thing again. And to see, all these supporters after the meeting, away win Edinburgh is always nice. And I'm pretty sure last year we lost the day after, didn't we? We lost the home meeting. We won away, we lost at home. So hopefully, we'll be a bit more better, a bit more prepared later on in the season as well when we're going to meet some of the stronger teams. But yeah, it was nice to be back. I enjoyed being back, to be fair, and scored some points. And a win away from home is always good, so we need to keep thinking about that and win the home meetings too.
Good to get Edinburgh out the way though. Was it somewhere in the depths of your mind of going back to Armadale?
Yeah, obviously it was a little bit. Like I said, I tried not to think about it, but it was in the back of my mind. And but I was just trying to focus on my job, just make some gates and go out there and make it easy for myself and not get in too many problems. And I did, so that was good. We all chipped in with points on Friday, and away win gives you 4 points, so we just keep that going.
Good stuff. Well, listen, thanks for your time and well done today.
You're welcome, mate. Thanks.
Glasgow captain Ulrich Ostergaard speaking with Phil Lanning there after Glasgow doing the double over Edinburgh over the course of the weekend, bagging quite a few points, but Edinburgh getting a point on the board as well for keeping it so close at Ashfield. Now, another thrilling encounter this past week was between Oxford Cheetahs and the Redcar Bears. It was the Knockout Cup first round, and it was Oxford who went into the second leg with a 4-point lead. The second staging was shown live on the British Speedway Network, and I was commentating on this meeting, and a classic from the point of view that with a 4-point lead, Oxford in the box seat from the start. Oxford extended their lead at one point, but it went right down to the final heats with the Oxford Cheetahs needing a 5-1 to send the tie that had been taking place over 30 heats to a golden heat. Didn't quite work out that way, though, because the home duo Charles Wright and Louis Kerr raced to a 5-1 of their own against Scott Nicholls and Troy Batchelor. We can hear from the top scorer for the Redcar Bears on the evening, Charles Wright, speaking with Hayley Bromley from British Speedway Network.
The runners close the whole meeting. We just managed to pull away in the latter stage of the meeting. It was a really tough meeting, but we got the job done in the end.
And the Oxford boys put a run to end to your unbeaten run, when you went to Sandy Lane earlier this week. They gave you a scare early doors. Looked like they might do the same here at home, but you've managed to maintain that unbeaten home record at least. Yeah,
it's a fresh track to everyone, Oxford, and early on we were finding the setup, and we crawled it back to within 4 points in the end, and we knew it wasn't one here because people come here and they love riding here, so we knew it was going to be tough all the way through the meeting, so I'm just pleased we've done it.
Absolutely, and track conditions today really interesting. They put quite a lot of water on it. We heard Jordan Jenkins earlier describe it as quite spongy off the starts. What were your thoughts on today's track?
Yeah, I think the starts were a bit different, not what we used to tonight, but it's same for everyone. But we dug deep and had a few meetings halfway through the meeting just to alter a bit of settings, and it seemed to work.
We talk about the Premiership, of course, but the riders, as we mentioned earlier, are largely shared between the two leagues, and the Championship now very close to the Premiership in terms of the standard on show. And I think this meeting, a case in point, really. It was a two-legged tie, 30 heats in total that wasn't actually sorted out until that very final heat, and great entertainment for those at both of the legs through the course of the week, and of course to people around the world watching on the BSN live stream too.
Yeah, absolutely, and a classic cup tie, which is fantastic. Oxford really took it to them, a new side obviously. Great to have Oxford back as a club. They've done fantastically well. Obviously building a pretty solid side and turning the stadium around in the short period of time that they've had. I know there's work is ongoing, but it's been actually a fantastic story for them, and in particular British Speedway. Because over the last few years, for varying reasons, we've had the loss of a few clubs. So to have one back like Oxford has been fantastic, and to see them riding as well as they did. I mean, fair play to Redcar. In a tie like that, it's very difficult to come back if you go that far behind at home. So they did a great job.
Well, let's get a word from one of the Oxford team now. Dillon Ruml has put a fair shift in over the last few weeks at reserve, scoring many points. Here he is speaking with Hayley Bromley following that defeat against Redcar.
The boys put in a good effort, for sure. I think, we knew that coming here to Redcar with these boys is going to be quite tough. I think that they get around here pretty quick. So, yeah, we knew it was going to be tough, but I think we surprised some people with how close we were, and I think, a bit of luck on our side, and I think we could have clinched it.
I mean, do you think, would it be anything different that you would have done on the night? Do you think potentially having Josh Macdonald back in the side, would that have made a difference? And would there be anything that you would have done looking back in hindsight?
Looking back in hindsight, I think, if I would have scored a bit more points.
There's Dillon Ruml there with a blunt assessment. If everybody had scored more points, Oxford would have got more points. A bit of an update, though, on Josh Macdonald. Hayley touched on it there. He's been out for a couple of weeks. He had a crash, got a fracture to his leg. Actually carried on riding after getting that fracture initially. But it looks like he might be a lot closer to getting back on a bike than many people thought. Some good news, possibly, for Oxford fans. Here's an update on Josh Macdonald's injury situation from the man himself, speaking to Robin Allen.
Yeah, cast is off now. I'm walking around quite a lot better. It's hard to put a time frame on it. It's just whenever the ankle feels right to go. I've got my fingers crossed it's going to be Leicester this Saturday, but yeah, this week will be a big week where I'll know if it's right or not.
So is it a case of, are you going to try and get some practice laps in this week before Leicester?
Yeah, that's the plan. Have some practice, make sure it feels right, and if light to green, then go racing.
That could potentially be a huge boost to Oxford to have Josh Macdonald back in their side as soon as this weekend when the Oxford Cheetahs travel to the Paul Chapman & Sons Arena on Saturday night to face Leicester Lions. He's going to be testing midweek after the Oxford Chargers meeting. Now, Leicester duo Kyle Howarth and Nick Morris both top scored with maximums in a crushing 60-30 home win over Redcar. 24 hours can be a long time in Speedway. The Lions maintain their position at the top of the championship with another powerful showing at the Paul Chapman & Sons Arena, with Nick Morris lowering the track record to 59.81 seconds in the opening race. That track record has stood for some time. Howarth's 15 and Morris's 12 were added to by Richie Worrell on 12+2, whilst Charles Wright picked up 11 for the Bears. Let's hear from the top scorer for the Leicester Lions then, the captain, Kyle Howarth, speaking with Pete Ballinger.
Back from illness, an absolutely sensational performance tonight, going through the card, brilliant.
Yeah, it was a good night for Leicester in the whole. A dominant performance again at home and a big solid 3 points on the board.
You were making some electric starts and then getting into the first corner. Track conditions weren't easy, a lot of material on tonight, but it didn't hold you back.
No, it was technical tonight. The track played a part. They put some new material on and it just kind of didn't bind. Made a few little grippy patches and it got better towards the end, but you know, that's how it goes sometimes. I've got to give credit to the track staff. They were trying all night and working their hardest. But like I said, it was a solid team performance from the start, a dominant one, and that's what we like to display.
Nick went out in Heat 1, broke the track record, but also vital contributions, third places from the Thompson boys, Joe battling through as Joe does, Connor picking up a Heat win in Heat 8 as well.
All doing their jobs, aren't they, and that's what it's about, and Stuart built a team like that, and the guest who come in, he did a great job. He got 2 points, he chipped away and he got his points, and fair play to him, and but everyone in a whole, like I said, great performance.
And whilst things are going great at home, perhaps needs to step up slightly away from home.
100%. We just we've been a bit slow this year from the start away. Obviously, we've let a few slip, but the boys had a decent meeting at Redcar last week, getting a point. So hopefully that's the start. Now we can keep chipping away and working on our way. If we can get our way better, we're in there for it, definitely.
There's Kyle Howarth, the Leicester captain, and Leicester, of course, there or thereabouts at the moment. They're currently top of the league, and yes, they've ridden more matches than everybody else, but look at the opposition they've faced at home, certainly, and that includes Poole, Glasgow, Redcar, 3 of the teams that you'd argue are going to be there or thereabouts come the reckoning, and they've defeated them pretty convincingly at home. So it's been a great start for Stuart Dixon's men. On the subject of Kyle Howarth, to you, Chris Louis, I mean, Kyle's been around a little while now. He's been, of course, part of the Sheffield setup for a considerable amount of time. But as a captain, he's always a steady pair of hands on the track, always putting away good scores, but also obviously a strong influence in the pits as well.
Yeah, I like Kyle. He's got that sort of old school leg back style, but he's a stalwart now really at Sheffield, and I just like he's a good team man. You know, he goes out every race just wanting to represent his club and his teammates. And yeah, I kind of put him in a similar vein to Danny King at Ipswich. You know, Danny is all about the club and his teammates, and he gets so disappointed if he doesn't ride well. You know, a lot of riders will look at that as a poor performance for them, but people like Kyle, Danny, they kind of look at it that they've let the team down, and you know, in a team sport, that's what it's all about, which is great, really.
On the subject of home form, keep an eye on the Plymouth Gladiators, who put away some big scores, 60-30 against Leicester, 48-42 against Scunthorpe, and on Tuesday night this week, defeating the Poole Pirates, the reigning champions, and a big South Coast derby, winning 53-37. You wouldn't have put your money on that one, but Plymouth very strong indeed at home, and they next week will face the Oxford Cheetahs. Their turn to visit the Coliseum and see how they get on against Plymouth. Now then, let's have a look at the fixtures then that are coming up for the week ahead. There's lots going on in British Speedway, so here's where the action is going to be at over this next week. On Wednesday, May the 4th, in the Championship, it's Birmingham versus Scunthorpe at Perry Bar. That starts at 7:30, and that fixture is live on BSN, British Speedway Network, from 7 o'clock. The show starts, tapes up at 7:30. And in the National Development League, the Oxford Chargers host the Berwick Bullets, also at 7:30. A full programme in the Premiership on Thursday night. It's Ipswich versus Belle Vue, Kings Lynn versus Wolverhampton, and Sheffield versus Peterborough, all getting underway at 7:30. Friday night in the Championship at Ashfield, Glasgow host the Plymouth Gladiators at 7:30, and a bit of action in the National Development League with Armadale versus Oxford and Belle Vue versus Leicester. Looking ahead to Saturday in the Championship, the Leicester Lions hosting the Oxford Cheetahs, who we were just talking about before, at 7 o'clock. Can Leicester continue that unbeaten home run? And in the National Development League, the Berwick Bullets hosting the Belle Vue Colts at 7. Sunday in the Championship at Brough Park, Newcastle Diamonds versus the Glasgow Tigers starts at 4 o'clock. And then next Monday's Premiership action is Peterborough versus Belle Vue and Wolverhampton versus Ipswich. And it's the Panthers versus the Aces, which will be live on Eurosport from 7 o'clock. And on Tuesday next week, it'll be the Plymouth Gladiators versus the Oxford Cheetahs. That one gets underway at 7 o'clock, and it will also be live on the British Speedway Network as well. watch.britishspeedway.co.uk if you'd like to take that one in. So that's how the fixtures look for the next 7 days or so. As you may well have noticed, the National Development League really getting underway this week as well, with fixtures all over the country. Edinburgh, Manchester with Belle Vue, the Berwick Bullets, Oxford, all hosting National Development League meetings. Chris Louis, just tell us about the National Development League and its importance, because we're seeing riders, of course, some riders race in the National Development League and then in reserve berths in the Championship. And, of course, in that league too, you've got riders that are just coming in from the junior ranks into their first sort of encounter with perhaps the bigger riders. So it's a really important place for riders to develop both their confidence and of course their initial first footsteps into League Speedway. Yeah,
it's good that we seem to have those stepping stones now, that riders are able to make that progression from National League into Championship, get that experience, because it has been missing. The National League, I feel, got a little bit too competitive. Equally, the Championship has moved closer to the Premiership in the last couple of years, and the step was very big, but it does seem to be bridging that gap a little bit now. And of course, we've got the junior racing in the Premiership. We've had a couple of challenge matches at Ipswich this year, and obviously the league meetings will start for our A fixtures against Peterborough and Kings Lynn, and obviously the Northern section will be doing the same thing. So it's about giving these young guys varied experience and track time, which is what we're all trying to do. So I think we're finding a better blend now with the second halves for the National League riders, and it's about speeding up that progression. We've given Daniel Hume a couple of meetings to be involved in now because of the illnesses and injuries and things that we've had to cope with, and it's been great for him. And he's shown that if we need to bring him in, we can rely on him to do a job. So that's what we need. We need to connect these younger riders with the Championship clubs and the Premiership clubs.
And some extra fixtures, of course, in the calendar this year. In the Championship, they've got the Summer Trophy that's going to be coming up. The Premiership are having the Premiership Pairs, which is going to be raced around at each of the Premiership tracks. So these extra competitions, it's extra meetings for fans to attend, but also something different tournaments that fans are going to get to see that previously they haven't been able to see.
Yeah, exactly. For the Championship, it's a sort of a midsummer break from league racing. And as you say, something different, so looking forward to that. And the Pairs is more spread out throughout the entire season. Starts, I think, in about 3 weeks' time. So, and it's going to be ultra competitive. Top two out of the top three from each of the teams. So, we're going to be seeing all of the guys that we spoke about earlier. The Doyles, the Holders, Kurtz, Frick, and all these guys competing against each other. And doing it 6 times throughout the summer, so really looking forward to that one getting going.
There's lots to look forward to, and of course Cardiff back on the agenda again in the summer as well. The British Grand Prix for the first time in 3 years will have had that tournament, which is going to be even bigger with the GP2 on the Sunday as well. So a huge central point for all the fans to meet. And of course, the Friday night's Oxford, isn't it? The pairs, the championship pairs is going to be there as well. So much to look forward to that we've missed out on over these last few years for Speedway in this country as a whole.
Yeah, great festival of summer Speedway to look forward to. And as you rightly say, I think it's the second round of the SGP2. Looking forward to working on that and watching some of these young guys. It's a chance to see them, because you don't get a chance to see the younger riders too much. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Discovery Sports Events do with Cardiff, because it's a wonderful platform, a wonderful stage for Speedway, recognised, I think, by fans and certainly riders world over. It's the number one event to go to and to try to win. So that's going to be a massive weekend.
Well, Chris Louis, thank you very much for joining us in this episode. Always a pleasure, and all the best for everything coming up for both British Speedway and, of course, the Ipswich Witches as well. Of course, that gets underway for Ipswich this Thursday against the Belle Vue Aces. All the best, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Thanks a lot, Ed.
And thanks to you for joining us. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday morning, when I think we're probably going to be on the road, actually, because I'm on the road going to Plymouth for that Plymouth versus Oxford fixture, and so we'll bring you a flavour from there, but also bring you all the reaction from the TV fixture, which is going to be Peterborough versus Belle Vue, and probably some of the reaction from the fixtures happening on Thursday as well, when we've got a full card. So there'll be lots of reaction from the Premiership and the Championship, and no doubt the National Development League as well. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode of No Breaks, No Fear. Enjoy your week in Speedway, and we'll speak to you next week.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Sports Social Podcast Network.